What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about another head coaching candidate for the Detroit Lions. Today, it is Marvin Lewis. Everybody knows about Marvin Lewis, so let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. Yes, Marvin Lewis is going to get his own video today as we continue our series of finding a head coach. I think that's what the series is called. I don't know what episode this is, but we're back with a Marvin Lewis video. And initially, I wasn't going to do a breakdown on Marvin Lewis, not his own breakdown, not his own video. But then I thought about it. It's like, okay, this guy has been coaching for so long, and he continues to coach. He deserves to have his own little spotlight, okay? We should make a video on this guy. There's so much there. There's almost too much there where we can't cover it all, but there's so much there we have to talk about it a little bit. Plus, the Lions have already announced that they've interviewed him, so we know he's a legitimate candidate, and the interview has already been done. So why not talk about Marvin Lewis a little bit? Now, you guys probably have the same thought that I do. As soon as I hear Marvin Lewis' name, I think 0-7 in the playoffs. I think, okay, took a team to the playoff multiple times, but could not win in the playoffs. That's what I think of, and that's very true. That's a very, very big concern. But as I continue to research and take a look back at Marvin Lewis, there are some things that I took away that I'm like, okay, hold up. This actually could be very beneficial to the Detroit Lions. So there's the concerns. There's also some good. Let's talk about it in today's video. But before we get into that, just a quick little run through of his background. He goes back to Idaho State as he played linebacker in college. He was actually going to go to Purdue, but I guess he got a scholarship from Idaho State, so he played there instead. Then he got into coaching with Idaho State as he became their linebacker coach. Makes sense. He was linebacker. Then he became a linebacker coach there. Now let me stop you right there. All right, I'm going to ask you guys this question. You guys try to answer it to yourself. I just want to know if everybody has the same type of answer here. Why are the Lions and why are Lions fans so interested in Robert Saleh? Okay, now you're thinking about it, right? You're thinking, okay, why are they? All right, the first reason is because he's from Michigan, right? That's huge. From Michigan, so obviously that's a very big factor. But in terms of being a coach, why are Lions fans so interested in Robert Saleh? And why do so many people predict that he will be the next Lions head coach? Well, it's because he's a defensive-minded guy, because he's a defense coordinator right now for the San Francisco 49ers. He has the linebacker background, which is the Lions' probably worst positional group. So with how bad the Lions defense was this year, which was historically the worst that we've ever seen, it just makes sense to go get a guy like Robert Saleh, right? I mean, in theory, it makes sense. Okay, defense bad, get a defensive coach, boom, you're good. Unfortunately, that really hasn't worked out for the Detroit Lions in the past, but it makes sense in theory. What I like about Marvin Lewis that I never even really thought of is that he kind of has that same thing behind him. He has a good resume as a defensive coordinator, and he also was a linebacker coach. He kind of has a similar background to what Robert Saleh has. Is he from Michigan? No, he's not from Michigan. Actually from Pennsylvania. So I guess maybe somewhat close to Michigan. I don't know. He's from Pennsylvania, but that is a similar thing to Robert Saleh that I picked up on. Hold up. He's a former linebacker coach who worked as an assistant coach at multiple places in college, including Long Beach State University, University of Mexico, University of Pittsburgh. But he has some of that linebacker background. He also played linebacker, so he has that player experience. Plus, he was a defensive-minded guy, being a defensive coordinator before he got his head coaching job. Where was he a defensive coordinator? With the Baltimore Ravens. So when the Baltimore Ravens became a team, he was the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. And when I say that this team peaked defensively under Marvin Lewis, they peaked defensively under Marvin Lewis, okay? Let's take a look at the numbers that Ravens defense put up when he was their defense coordinator. So the first year for the Ravens, 1996. Not the best start. 27.6 points per game allowed, 93.4 pass rating allowed, 3.8 yards per carry, which isn't bad, but the rest of the stats, not very good. 28 points basically given up per game, that's a problem. But it got much better every year, and at one point, in 2000, it was the best defense in the league. It set records for how many points they were giving up, and in the Super Bowl, his defense was so good that it basically landed him a head coaching job. So 1997, it improves. And they're now only allowing 21.6 points per game, and 80.8 pass rating, and 3.6 yards per carry. Across the board, better. Then in 1998, 20.9 points per game, 80.1 pass rating, 3.6 yards per carry. 1999, 17.3 points per game, 67.1 pass rating, and only 3.1 yards per carry. And here's the big year, 2000. This is when it happened. They won a Super Bowl 34-7. 10.3 points per game. They only allowed 10.3 points per game. That Ravens defense, everybody knows about that 2000 Ravens defense, right? 67.5 pass rating and 2.7 yards per carry. That is insanely good. And in the Super Bowl, this is what his defense did when they were on the field. This is their defensive possessions. Punt 6 times in a row. Punt, 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 punt. Okay. Interception, punt, interception, interception, punt, interception, touchdown, awesome, punt, punt, fumble, end of game. Of one of the best defenses that football has ever seen, and it got better every year. In his final year, it took a little bit of a step back, but it was still great. I mean, it wasn't 2,000, but it was great. 16.6 points per game allowed, 72.8 pass rating, and 3.4 yards per carry. Still great. So he got his name out there by that great defensive track record that he put together as a defense coordinator. And finally, the Cincinnati Bengals gave him an opportunity. There were some other teams that they thought were going to hire him, but the Bengals gave him an opportunity. Now, here's where things get interesting, okay? So now we discuss the Cincinnati Bengals, and we know that they haven't had that postseason success. But let's take a look at the good and the bad here with his tenure with the Cincinnati Bengals. So when they hired Marvin Lewis in 2003, this was a Bengals team that didn't have a winning record. Since 1990. They went that long without a winning record. Of course, no playoff appearances. So he comes in 2003, taking over a 2-14 team that was the worst record the franchise ever had. And in his first year, they go 8-8. His next year, 8-8. And the year after that, he has them in the playoffs at 11-5, winning the division. So a complete turnaround within 3 years, a complete turnaround. Now, his ride was a little bit like this. It was kind of like this, and then he had like a really high, and then it was kind of low a little bit. That's kind of how it ended. So let's go through the records by year just very quickly. So 11-5, then you see 8-8, then 7-9, then 4-11-1. Now you're kind of concerned a little bit, but bounced back 10-6. And in that 2009 season where they went 10-6, he won Coach of the Year. Man, I'd love to have a coach win Coach of the Year in Detroit. But then the year after that, not so good, 4-12. But then Carson Palmer, I guess he's like, hey man, I want to get out of here. A lot of fans pointed to the unsuccess of some of these years because of the quarterback play. They didn't have, Carson Palmer apparently was playing very well. Then he wanted to trade after the 2010 season, and it led to the 4-12 record. And then when you look ahead to Andy Dalton, many people say, well, he didn't show up in the big games. Andy Dalton wasn't that good, and, the team was making these playoff games, but if they had a better quarterback, maybe they could have went further into the playoffs. Now, that draws another concern where, okay, well, hey, hold up. Can Marvin Lewis will Marvin Lewis be able to find me a quarterback? Maybe a GM can definitely help there because I'm going to need one for the future at some point. But for the immediate future, I believe Stafford's better than both of them, right? So if you put Stafford there, then, maybe you actually do get some of that playoff and postseason success, which many fans believe these teams could have because they had the talent. They just didn't have the quarterback play. All right, I got to get out of here. So the Bengals had to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, and they went and grabbed Andy Dalton. Now, when you're seeing Andy Dalton right now with Dallas, even though it's not the best team, he's not doing that well with the Dallas Cowboys. He's okay, but he hasn't done great with the Dallas Cowboys. That was their starting quarterback, and many people said that this was not that good of a quarterback. So maybe a little bit concerning they weren't able to find someone better, but they brought in Andy Dalton, they brought in AJ Green, and the year that Andy Dalton took over as quarterback, 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, 10-5-1, 12-4. There was like 5 straight playoff appearances in a row. That thing they found some big time consistency with Andy Dalton, and then it kind of fell apart near the end. 6-9-1, 7-9, 6-10, and then they mutual parted ways because he was still under contract. He mutually parted ways with the Cincinnati Bengals. Said, okay, I'm gonna go away from this. But now he's right now the co-defensive coordinator for Arizona State at college football. So he's keeping his ties. He's still working in the game. He still know he wants to get back at it. He wants another shot at it. So there was definitely a nice little stretcher. And that 5 straight playoff appearances is tough for any team, especially when you take into consideration how bad of a team he took over. Now, what's the big glaring issue here? 0-7 in the playoffs. 0-7 in the playoffs. As a Lions fan, okay, knowing that we want to do more than just get the playoffs. All right, now playoffs for us is rare, but not only that, we want to not only make playoffs, we want to win a playoff game. We've only won one playoff game in our history. So why would we bring in a guy that's never won a playoff game? That is the biggest concern with everybody when they bring up Marvin Lewis, and it should be. It's the biggest concern with me, no question about it. I will say this with being 0-7 in the playoffs, and I'll pull it up right now. In those playoff appearances that they had under Marvin Lewis, one of the biggest issues that many people will bring up, many Bengals fans will also bring this up, is that one of the biggest issues was they were not able to score in those games. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I believe that Matthew Stafford is way better than Andy Dalton right now, right? Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than Andy Dalton. I think everybody pretty much will agree with that. I believe that Stafford would be the better quarterback that Marvin Lewis would be able to coach with. But those issues in those playoff games were they were not able to score. This was their scoring through those playoff games. 2005, the first one, 17, 2009, 14, 2011, 10, 2012, 13, 2013, 10, 2014, 10, 2015, 16. All of those games, not one of those games did they score more than 18 points in a playoff game. You can just compare Matthew Stafford's playoff stats to Andy Dalton's playoff stats. Now, Matthew Stafford hasn't been incredible in the playoffs, but he also hasn't been there since 2016. In 2016, they went against well, that Seattle defense in Seattle, which was very, very tough. But either way, he hasn't been the best in playoff games, but still his numbers basically blow away Andy Dalton's in playoff games. Look at Andy Dalton's stats. I mean, these are really bad. Look at Andy Dalton's stats in playoff games. 2011. A 51 passer rating and 250 yards passing. 2012, a 44.7 passer rating and less than 130 yards passing. 2013, 67 passer rating. He went over 300 yards. Okay, that's okay. And then 2014, 63.4 passer rating and 150 yards. 3 out of the 4 playoff games he played in, less than 57% of the passes did he complete. For Matthew Stafford, again, going back to 2011, all right, Matthew Stafford's really his first full year of football in 2011. 97 passer rating, 380 passing yards. 2014, 87.7 passer rating, 323 yards. And 2016, which was rough, still 75.7 passer rating, which is a higher passer rating than any of Andy Dalton's years in the playoffs. And right now, I personally believe Stafford is on his peak. I think Stafford's really peaking right now. I think Stafford, especially with Bevel, is peaking. He did last year, and I think he's getting to that point where when he's comfortable, this guy is playing really, really well. And I would love to see him back in a playoff game. This isn't with a running game. None of these years could they run the football, okay? They really couldn't run the ball at all. 2011, they ran it somewhat okay. It was like 14th in the league in yards per attempt. That was like the best we've ever seen under Stafford. 2014, they were one of the worst, if not the worst in the league. In 2016, they couldn't run the ball either. Somehow, Lions could match up Marvin Lewis with a guy like Darrell Bevel. I would be in love with that. I don't think it's possible, but I'd be in love with it because what I see right now is Stafford would be the better quarterback that Marvin Lewis has had. Then you just got to figure out the offensive side. The thing that I like about Marvin Lewis, just a little bit more than talking about the guy like Robert Saleh, things like that. Nothing against Robert Saleh, but it's just our history. Just bringing in a defensive guy when your defense is bad makes sense. Okay, defense bad, let's bring in a defensive guy, great. Sometimes it doesn't even make our defense better. We saw that kind of with Patricia. But it makes sense in theory. The issue is a lot of those times, those head coaches for us, when they take over as head coach, they can't focus on the whole team. They may be able to improve the defense, but that's their focus, right? They aren't able to improve the whole team. Well, with Marvin Lewis, he has at least experience with the whole team and winning as a team, taking his team to the playoffs that wasn't there. So he knows how to control a whole team, but also improve a defense. Look at his early years when he started with Cincinnati. Starting with the defensive side, which you would hope would improve because he's got that defensive background. 2002 is the year he wasn't there. The year before was there, 2002. They were allowing the most points per game in the NFL and the highest passer rating in the NFL. 28.5 points per game, 99.9 passer rating, and 4 yards per carry. First year he takes over. They dropped that down to 24 points per game allowed, which is about 4.5 less. They are worse in run defense, way worse, 4.8 yards per carry, but it's still less points per game, and it's also a way better pass rating allowed at 83.9. The next year is there, 04, now down to 23.3 points per game, 4.4 yards per carry, 0.5 pass rating. So again, improving in pass rating and also improving in points allowed. And then in 2005, the year they finally go to the playoffs, 21.9 points per game, 4.3 yards per carry, and 72.8 pass rating. Every year they improved in pass rating and scoring. And now his first year in run defense was bad, but it got better every year for him. So you can see the defense got better year by year by year under Marvin Lewis for the first 3 years that he was there. Take a look at the offensive side. That also saw improvements before he got there. 4.1 yards per carry, 71.8 pass rating, and 17.4 points per game. It was an issue. They couldn't score that well. But in 2003, his first year, 4.1 yards per carry stays the same. However, way higher pass rating, 87.4, and 21.6 points per game. Improving in points per game and in pass rating, same with yards per carry. 2004, next year, 4.2 yards per carry, slight improvement. 77 pass rating, down from the year before, but still up from the year before he was there. 23.4 points per game. Once again, that goes up. And then in 2005, they made the playoffs, 4.2 yards per carry, 99.6 passer rating, way up, and 26.3 points per game. That also improved every year. So he improved offense and defense every year, basically, with Cincinnati in his first 3 years. That's been one of the biggest issues is the Lions can bring in a guy, but the NFL head coach is so much different, so much bigger than being, hey, look, I'm a coordinator. Hey, look, worry about the defense. And NFL coaches, you got to hire a staff. You got to help during the offseason. It's all about finding free agents, drafting guys, hiring staff, getting people around to work with. Because it's not that, hey, I can know everything, but it's I got to find the right staff to build around and work with me. And then it's about finding the right players, of course. I think Matthew Stafford would be the best quarterback that he was able to work with. Did you guys imagine a scenario where Darrell Bevel, after seeing what this offense is doing this year, if Marvin Lewis let Darrell Bevel do what he wants to do offensively, which I don't think is realistic, with Marvin Lewis, who has that defensive background, that as a defense coordinator put one of the best defenses together we've ever seen in NFL history, and has improved the defense with Cincinnati, could you imagine those two working together? Marvin Lewis kept his job for 16 years as an NFL head coach, which is just ridiculous. Starting off with the good, the experience. Of course, when you've coached that long defensively and as a head coach, you want the experience. The Lions, I would love to have experience at the head coaching position because in history, when the Lions bring in a guy that has any type of experience, it's way better. You can look up the numbers. It's just our historical data for this team. He has had some success in terms of making a stable, pretty constant playoff contender. He just wasn't able to win in those playoff games. Would that fix Detroit? I would hope so. You would think that at some point you win a playoff game. 0-7 is the worst in NFL history, I believe. But I would hope that they would be able to get that happen. But the only way you can win playoff games is by getting there, that's for sure. But it concerns me. It does concern me. My biggest hopes then would be hopefully that this offense with Stafford, if he does stay here, because I believe Marvin Lewis will keep Stafford. I don't think Marvin Lewis will move Stafford. And this could be beneficial to players already here because when he steps in day one, players aren't saying, oh, okay, maybe he can do it, maybe he can't. Marvin Lewis can say, hey, here's my resume. I was able to take a team from the ground and build them up to a playoff contender. Was I able to win playoff games? No. But I can make you a playoff contender. That's what he can tell the guys. I can make you a playoff contender. Think about it like this. We'll just use Marvin Jones Jr. for an example. Marvin Jones says he wants to play for a contender. So who do you think Marvin Jones Jr. is more willing to sign with? A team that hires someone that you're hoping it works or a guy that can come in and say, hey, at least I've made it work and I can take a team to the playoffs that's at the bottom, which it seems like that's where the Lions are right now. Plus he has a defensive background. Which one do you think he's more likely to sign with? Look at a guy like Adrian Peterson. I don't want to rebuild. I want to retool. Whether you want Adrian Peterson back or not, do you think a 62-year-old Marvin Lewis is looking to blow everything up, especially when this would be the best quarterback that he gets to work with? Probably not. For Matthew Stafford, the same situation. He's more likely to stay with a guy that says, hey, I've won before than, hey, hopefully it works. Let's try it. This is my vision. Let's see if it happens. Because Stafford's seen the visions. He just hasn't come out to play on the field. He wants to know that, hey, this will work because you can show me that it has worked. Probably tons of players out there that probably liked Marvin Lewis, something like that. And again, even upcoming free agents, people like that, they're going to see that, hey, this guy's proven. He can take me to the playoffs. All right, at least I know that he can win games. He's proven at least there. Maybe not in, the playoff games, but as we broke down, a lot of that is quarterback play for them. So at least I know that he can turn this team around. So you're more likely to sign with the Lions if they have someone that's proven at the head coaching position, I would have to believe. And plus, there's probably former Bengals guys that have been with him before that are like, hey, yeah, I'll go play for you again. Matthew wants stability. Everybody on a team wants stability. They want someone that they know is going to be their head coach year in, year out. That's what you'll be getting with Marvin Lewis because you already saw that for 16 years, Cincinnati gave an opportunity. If you look in Detroit, we haven't had that. Every 3-4 years, someone is fired. There's no constant here. So that's an issue with a lot of players. They want that stability, and they also would like to have a chance in the playoffs. Matthew Stafford would definitely. He would like to have a defense that's good. He hasn't been able to find a good defense to play with, okay? Aside from 2014, our defense has been awful. I mean, this year was completely garbage. So now you're talking about a head coach that can say that, hey, I've done this. Matthew could look at that and say, okay, you're proven to me. I'm willing to stay here. And then Marvin Lewis, I have no question that he would keep Matthew Stafford, knowing that this would be a way better quarterback than what Andy Dalton was, and he would have a way better shot to win games with Matthew. Since he has left there, 6-25-1 in Cincinnati. That's the most recent record I've seen. 6-25-1. Also, he has some ties within the Lions organization. Our running back coach currently right now worked with Marvin Lewis in the past, so you could see him stay. You could see a few guys maybe in the staff stay. Like I said, I think it would help the players. Also, he has that Coach of the Year award behind him. When it comes to the concerns, his age is one. He's 62 years old. There's only like 6 active coaches that are over 60 years old. It's a concern when they go back and look at it long term. How long would he be willing to coach? It may not be a concern to him, but I'm just saying it's something to keep in mind. Playoff success, 0-7. The fact that you can't win a playoff game is something that must be held against you. And an organization that needs to have that, here's the thing. We're going to look at it as fans and say that, okay, hey, we need, a guy that has this playoff success. He doesn't have playoff success, don't get him. Then why are we looking at coordinators? Just why in general? I know they haven't had the opportunity to do it, but why look at them? If you're telling me we need a guy that's proven that said, hey, I can win playoff games, there's only maybe a few guys, maybe like 1 or 2 guys that you could look at and say, okay, this guy's available to hire that's actually won playoff games. And you guys won't like those names. You guys don't like those names. Why would we look at any type of coordinator if we have to, if 0-7 turns us away, then we should never look at it, then we should not be looking at coordinators. Because coordinators have no playoff record. They have no record at all. They have no experience at all. Actually, look at our history, it hasn't really worked out well for us. What does Chris Spielman say that this team was looking for in their head coaching search? Culture. All right, he has the culture behind him. We know that, and it would be a culture that he would try to build within Detroit because he's been at multiple places. I have to believe that he's things he can take, but he would try to build a different culture here. So you're going to get a different culture, that's for sure, from what we had. The next thing, leadership. I check on ESPN, everything like that. They all describe him as a leader. I haven't seen any major big problems where they got into an argument and a fight and things went completely wrong. I haven't seen that. So you have to believe that he's a leader because they kept him there for 16 years. So clearly there wasn't those major issues that kicked him out, and it was a mutual decision for him to step down and walk away from the Cincinnati Bengals and go do something else for a little bit. And then finally checking your ego at the door. I don't see a guy with a huge ego here. You know, I don't see a very outspoken guy. He's a little bit calmer. I know people love the passionate, super fiery guys, and I like that too. It's fun. But I also say that it doesn't result in wins and losses. Yelling on the sideline doesn't equal wins. Being quiet on the sideline doesn't equal losses. It's just how well can you coach. Everybody has their own personality. So to me, I don't know if he's my top candidate right now, but I do think there's definitely some major perks to take away. And there's things about him that I never really thought of that I think must be mentioned because he has shown some good things. I mean, his background could be very beneficial because not only am I getting a guy that knows how to maybe help the linebacker group, played the position, can give you hands-on, that gives him an in with Chris Spielman, who was a linebacker. But not only that, now he can also bring the experience to the entire locker room because he knows how to build and manage a team once he steps in. Plus, he has a resume which players can back on. Also, other coaches can as well. People will believe in him stepping in day one and what he wants to do. And he's already proven that he could turn around franchise to make it a playoff contender. He just hasn't proven he can win the playoff game. I believe him and Stafford together, they could potentially do something like that because Matthew would be the better quarterback out of, you know, Andy Dalton, who wasn't showing up in those games. And somehow, some way, if you could get Daryl Bevel to work with him, which I don't think is possible, I think that would be a beautiful match. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.